Good morning. I wanted to make a little video explaining this idea of synthesis that we have to have in our remainder essays. Hopefully you've seen the video that explains how the explanatory synthesis is going to be the core that we build the argument on. Make sure that you're reading all those announcements and emails and watching all those videos, because they are the substitute for the fact that we're not in class speaking face to face. So the synthesis activity, if you go to our Blackboard page and click into explanatory and argument essay models, this is where all of our materials are. You'll see a copy of the module or the assignment calendar 3, the essay assignment sheet, some of those grammar things, right? After I've told you about these a couple times. If you click on the one that says synthesis, what is it? That should be helpful. There's 2 whole chapters in our book that explain explanatory synthesis and argument synthesis. So between the book and these materials, there's no reason to get to the end of the semester and I dock a grade on the essays because you have no synthesis and you're like, well, I didn't know what it was. The materials are provided. You actually have to go in and take a look. So the synthesis, what is it handout is just kind of an abbreviated form of the 2 chapters in our textbook that are explaining this in detail. Synthesis is just a fancy way to say how we're using our sources. We synthesize things all the time, right? So if you're going to buy a new cell phone, think of the research you do. And you may not think of it as research, but it is. So you talk to people who have that new phone. You might watch a tutorial on YouTube about it. You go to the store and actually pick it up and play with it and see how you like it. You read a website that has how many pixels and what the memory is and what the battery life is. And then you synthesize all that information together to make a decision. Yes, I'm going to buy this new phone, right? And you may not think of that as research, but that's what you're doing. So synthesis, as the handout points out, is when you're making a relationship between your sources. So like the first example at the bottom, if we just look at this one paragraph, we're using 2 sources in this paragraph to support, and we're synthesizing them together to support the topic sentence. So this says, enrollment in healthcare plans in the U.S. jumped in popularity between 1970 and the millennium. That's our topic sentence, right? So that's everything in the paragraph needs to support and explain this jump in healthcare plans. Our first source we see is quoted to Families USA. There's no author. In 1970, fewer than 2 million people, or less than 1% of the population, were enrolled in HMOs. And then our next source we see is Levine, the author Levine, page 64. Because the cost of healthcare escalated dramatically during the next 25 years, and that the expense of managed care was considerably less than the cost of indemnity insurance, by 1996, 60% of Americans were enrolled. So our topic sentence is saying between the 1970 and 2000, enrollment in these plans went up. Our first source is saying this is what it was in 1970. The second source is saying this is what it was in 1996. These are different sources, and you put them together to show and prove that topic sentence that enrollment went up over those 30 years. So there's a couple examples here. Sometimes your sources, you can synthesize them together to agree with each other. These agree, or to disagree, or this one says something and this one elaborates or gives an example. There's all sorts of ways we can put our sources together. But in the basis of all this, we have to have more than one source in a paragraph, and they have to be interacting with each other. You can't just slap them in there. They actually have to be working together to support or prove that topic sentence. There's a whole sample explanatory synthesis essay in here, and you can see when we look at this on the essay level, not every paragraph needs to have synthesis. But some of your paragraphs may have 4 or 5 sources synthesized together. So between the 2 chapters in the book, this sample essay, this handout, we should, you have to definitely look through these and get an idea of how you can do this with your own sources in our First Amendment essays. If you click on the synthesis activity in that folder, and if you haven't noticed, the files that are red font are the ones that are assignment sheets. So those are the really important ones. If you click this open, this is a silly synthesis activity I made a zillion years ago about Johnny Depp. So what we're going to do is if you just like scroll to the last page, the third page here, you'll see that there are all these invented quotes. So we're going to pretend like we went around Harlan County and interviewed people to find out what they think about Johnny Depp. Some of these people talked about his looks, some talked about his fans, some talked about his work, his movies. They all got crazy names. Some of them like him, some of them don't. So these are all individual sources, right? An interview is one source, just like a website or a book or a movie. So if we were to use these sources in the essay, these would all go on the Works Cited page as personal interviews. So if you look at that second page, here is an example of a synthesis paragraph. So what you have to do for this is you have to make a claim about Johnny Depp or his fans or Hollywood expectations or his movies or something. And then your paragraph should be 8 to 10 sentences. I'm going to push you to write a fully developed paragraph, not just 2 or 3 or 4 sentences, like a fully developed paragraph. And use at least 4 of these sources. So these are individual sources. So if you make a relationship between Vicky to Nikki and, Gus Monkey Bread, you're synthesizing, right? You have to at least give the speaker's last name because that's how we would cite a personal interview. There's no page numbers, so just their last name. So make a claim and use at least 4 sources to support that claim. So if we look at the sample on paragraph 2 or page 2, the claim is, items of pop culture obviously have many people who enjoy and support them, and they also have people who reject them. This goes for fashion trends, music styles, and even people. The actor Johnny Depp is no exception, as he has thousands of fans and also many people who aren't fans. Okay, so this is what our sources have to work together to prove. Some people love him, some people don't. Obviously, when you go to type your paragraph, you do not have to do this bolded, underlined side commentary. That's just so that you guys can see how the parts of this paragraph are working together, so don't do that. So one passionate fan, Hannah Banana, calls him irresistible, and along the same lines, Honda and Panji see Depp as original and unique when it comes to celebrities. So right there in that sentence, we're synthesizing 3 sources, Banana, Honda, and Panji. You can see that some of these are quoted, some of these are summarized, and just take the part out of the quote that you need. You don't have to put the whole thing if you just want one word. We just took one word from Hannah Banana, that he's irresistible. So we're synthesizing 3 sources together to show, look, people like him. And then the paragraph is going to tilt and shift, but as there is passionate approval, there's also strong disapproval. DeFran thinks his movies are weird. Monkey Bread is bored by Depp. Appleseed even goes so far as to call Depp a greasy chain-smoking pansy. So now we've synthesized 3 sources to say they don't like him. Here's 3 that do, here's 3 that don't. So these are individual sources that we've mushed together, like ingredients, to make something new. And then we've got a closing sentence, whichever side of the Depp fence a person is on, they'll have company. So what I want you to do is don't use this same claim. Some people like him and some people don't. Don't repeat that, but think of something else. You can look through these quotes and find some commonalities. Like I said, people are talking about his looks, his movies, his talent, about Hollywood, about his fans, whatever. So that's the synthesis activity that needs turned in. So make sure to ask me any questions that you have, and I hope you all have a good day.